everybody. Welcome to the Columbus Junction Public Library's very first Bookshelf Bites. This is a video that we decided to start because we were missing cooking on Wednesday afternoons with all of our kids after school during those early outs. So we decided we would do this series of videos. We're going to do one a month and send kits home so that you can cook alongside of us. So the first thing we're going to do before we get started with bread in a bag is go wash our hands. I will wait here while you do that. And when you're back, I'm just going to kind of chat at you. You've got two bags. You have one that's full of flour, and you've got one spare. And then you've got 3 cups. One that has a number 1, a number 2, and a number 3. We're going to need those at different times. The only other thing that you're going to need is your pan and a cup measure. So grab those things, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so we're going to start with 1 cup of flour. So grab your flour and your cup measure. And you're going to want to grab 1 cup of flour. Mostly full. Don't worry if it's not perfect. It'll all still turn out. Pour your cup of flour into your bag. Then you're going to take cup number 1 and you're going to open that up and pour everything in. This is the sugar and the yeast. And then we're going to add some water. It needs to be warm water. Not as warm as maybe your shower or your bath water, but warm enough that you can tell that it's warm water. That's what will make the yeast and sugar grow. So I'm going to step over here, grab some water, and we're going to put it in my bag, okay? Okay, so here I have my cup of water. I'm going to pour it into my bag with the flour, the sugar, and the yeast. And then I'm going to zip it up. Maybe squeeze a little bit of the air out, but make sure none of your ingredients come out, okay? Zip it all the way shut. You might have to ask an adult or maybe an older person at your home, brother, sister. Make sure it gets shut all the way because then you're going to mess your bag all up and mix everything together. You're going to want to make sure you get it all nice and mixed up because that yeast won't grow without the sugar and without the water. So if your bag looks like this, you're probably doing pretty good. And here comes the boring part. We have to wait for 10 minutes while our yeast grows enough that we can keep making our bread. So I'm going to set a timer and Erin's going to come in and talk with you about some cool things about bread that you may not know from history. Here we go.
Hi guys, this is Erin, and I'm here to do Beyond the Bite, which is kind of giving a little bit of history on what bread is and how bread came to be what it is in modern times. So I thought this might be fun to share with you guys while we were waiting for all of the yeast to get yeasty. 700 to 100 BC, during the height of the ancient Greek civilization, bread becomes the staple food. Meals consist of maza, a cheap and filling flatbread, and opsan, a meat or vegetable accompaniment, which are served directly on top of the maza in a kind of proto-pizza. So pizza's been around for a long time. Greek philosophers mention at least 70 different bread recipes, including a vibrant baking tradition. The Greeks also invented the first preheatable dome-shaped oven. One of the 12 Olympians in the Greek pantheon is Demeter, the goddess of bread, the harvest, and fertility. 168 BC. With the establishment of the Collegium Pissorum, the first bakers' guild, pastry bakers become an officially recognized and esteemed occupation in the Roman Empire. Bakers are the only free Roman craftsmen, as all other trades are practiced by slaves, including the hard labor of grinding grains into flour, which is reserved for female slaves. A wide variety of bread recipes exist during the Roman era, including leavened and unleavened bread, rye, acorn, and millet bread. For wealthier citizens, crusty wheat bread made with fine white fara, or farina, not sure how that's said, flour, and flavored with ingredients like honey and cheese is the norm. 79 CE, the eruption of Vesuvius covers the town of Pompeii in ash, preserving the city's network of over 35 bakeries. The archaeological ruins suggest that the store-bought bread from bakeries was more common than home-baked bread for urban citizens in the Roman Empire. 400 to 1400 CE. During the Dark and Middle Ages, bread is mostly purchased from local bakehouse, as the majority of people do not have the wood-burning stoves at home. In Europe, the kind of bread one eats becomes a symbol of one's socioeconomic standing. Peasants generally eat dark whole-grain breads. White elites can afford to eat lighter wheat bread, as refined flour is far more expensive than barley, rye, or oats. But by the 12th century, Most bread eaten in Europe is made from wheat. During this period, bread becomes part of the European place setting. A thick, hard slice of bread called a trencher is set up on a wooden plate as a base for a stew of meat and vegetables. The hard bread soaks up the sauce, making it easier to eat. In fact, the word supper comes from the Frankish suppa, meaning to soak. 1086 CE, the Domesday census conducted in Britain reveals the existence of over 5,600 water-powered grist mills for grinding flour, one for every 300 inhabitants. 1266 to 1267 CE. The Assize of Bread and Ale is a statute introduced to regulate the price, weight, and quality of bread and ale produced and sold in Britain. It is the first British law to regulate food and protects consumers against unscrupulous bakers who would sell short-weighted bread or stretch flour by adding sand, sawdust, chalk, or plaster. The first statute is enforced by the Worshipful Company of Bakers' Guild. The practice of a baker's dozen arises from this statute, with bakers including an extra bun or loaf for a total of 13 to avoid potentially short-weighting the buyer. Punishments for which are harsh, up to losing a hand. Ugh. Bakers guard their trade secrets closely, and guilds render baking a protected and profitable trade. In 1750, English aristocrat John Montagu, 4th Earl of Sandwich, invents the sandwich when he orders his valet to bring his meat between two slices of bread. It is said that he preferred this eating with a fork and knife so as to keep his hands free for playing cards and cribbage. In 1891, Dr. August Eddeker, a German pharmacist, began selling a baking powder mixture that transforms home and industrial baking by increasing the volume and lightening the texture of baked goods. 1928. July 7th, American inventor Otto Rohwedder sells his first loaf of sliced bread at the bakery in Chillicothe, Missouri. His automatic machine both slices and bags the bread to keep it fresh. Within a year, American bakeries are selling more sliced loaf of bread than unsliced, and within 2 years, 90% of store-bought bread is pre-sliced. 1930, the Continental Baking Company introduces Wonder Bread, a loaf of airy, white bread which experiences great popularity and commercial success. And our last fact is on September 24th in 2008, which, ending an 800-year tradition of regulating bread weight by law, a European directive overturns weight requirements for bread loaves first imposed by the 1266 Assize of Bread and Ale and later the Bread Acts of 1822, allowing British bakers and stores to sell bread of any size or any weight. Baking is a cooking process that exposes foods to dry heat for prolonged periods of time, typically within an oven, but also on hot ashes or stones. Today, bread is the most commonly baked food worldwide. Most modern kitchens have conventional ovens, which work by circulating heat around the food. The heat gradually penetrates from the outside, resulting in a crispy crust and a soft center. The primitive bread baking dates of the Neolithic period, when a kind of thick dough of stamped wild grains and water was spread onto hot rocks for baking. The ancient Egyptians baked with wheat breads with yeast, and by the Roman period, baking had become a respected and protected profession. For most of history, the average household did not have a kitchen oven, so bread was purchased from local bakeries. Some of the first ready-made and convenience food were baked pies and pastries eaten by urban factory workers in the 19th century Europe and the United States. Today, too, commercial bakeries provide for most of the baked goods consumed worldwide, but home baking is still an important part of daily life for many and a treasured pastime or holiday tradition for others. So these have been your fun bread facts from Erin.
So maybe that was a little bit longer than 10 minutes, but that's okay. Cool stuff about bread. On the table, I left my bag alone, and you can kind of see that my bag's puffed up a little bit. You might see some bubbles inside. That's awesome, because that's exactly what your bread needs to do so that it can grow. So now we're going to open it up, and we're going to add a couple more things. It's kind of nice and sticky. It should kind of start to smell like bread a little bit, too. Next, we are going to add another cup of flour. So get your cup measure out. Measure a cup of flour and put it into your bag. Your cup measure is probably going to get a little bit dirty, and that's okay. And then the next thing, we're going to actually add cup number 2. So this has dried milk and salt in it. So you'll put the whole thing of that in there. And then cup number 3 has oil, and you're going to want to pour all of that oil in as well. And then again, you might need somebody older to to help you zip your bag up. You want to make sure, because now there's some stuff that might be sort of sticky in your zippers, and you want to make sure that your bag doesn't fly open as you're trying to do your, like mine's going to, because see, mine won't actually shut right now. So maybe I need a big person to help me, because this bag is sure not closing for me. Oh, there we go. Now it's going to. Even adults have problems with things sometimes. So then we're going to do the same thing and just mix the whole bag up. And you can kind of see that some of the flour maybe isn't sticking in the dough, so you want to just kind of move it all over. That's why I said it was really super important that you have your zipper, your bag shut all the way, because you want to move the bag all the way around. And now it's starting to kind of pull away from my bag a little bit and look more like dough. And that's exactly what you want to have happen, okay? So mix it just a little bit so that you can't see any flour left in there. And then you're going to open it back up one more time and add 1 more cup of flour. You don't want to pour the whole rest of this bag in, because you'll see that when we measured out your flour, we gave you some extra. See, in my bag, I have just a little bit of extra flour. That's for when we roll the dough out and we're kneading it on the countertop, okay? So it'll get a little bit messy, so you want to make sure to for sure measure that last cup of flour. And then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to just keep squishing it all around. See how there's still some flour though? So I keep squishing it all the way around until everything's mixed in all together. And it'll kind of feel like Play-Doh maybe. I don't know. Maybe you can come up with a better explanation of what it feels like to you. I think it kind of feels like Play-Doh that maybe you left out for an hour or two because you forgot to put it away. Then I'm going to just throw away these items right here so they're out of our way. And I am going to flip back my tablecloth just a little bit. And here comes the fun part. Take your hand in your flour, sprinkle some on the counter. It doesn't have to be all over the counter, just a little bit, because we're going to knead our bread. So here's my bread. I'm going to see if I can get it pulled out of the bag in one big clump. I think I can. I'm going to just set it right there. Maybe get all the rest of the little pieces out for yourself. And then you're going to you knead with the palm of your hand, kind of right here by your wrist. And so you fold over and press down. And then you just keep folding and pressing. And you're going to feel like your bread's a little bit sticky. You don't want it super sticky, like it's going to stick to your hands. But you don't want to keep kneading it so much that it gets kind of dry and overdone and things like that. So I'm just going to knead a little bit more, I think. Let's see. That's pretty good. So I like to stick my finger in it, and if it pops back up at you, you're probably good to go. So my hands are all dirty. That's okay. Now you get to pick. Do you want to make rolls for your family for supper, or do you want to make a loaf of bread? You can do either one. I'm going to make rolls because we're at the library right now, and then we can all have some fresh bread. So you might have like a cooking spray at your house, or maybe you just have oil and a paper towel, but you need to oil your pan, whatever it is that you're using. We sent some home with you. You can use those. You can use something else. And then I'm going to shape. You can shape it like a loaf. So sometimes, think about what a loaf of bread looks like. Kind of looks something like that. And you can leave it like that and you can put it in your pan. Or I'm going to break mine in half. And I'm going to break each half in half. And then I'm going to break each half in half again. So I should have like 8 rolls, I think, is what I worked out. And then for my rolls, I'm just going to roll them into a ball and set them in my pan. So I'll do that with all 8 of them. or you can make smaller rolls, you can make bigger rolls. It really just depends on what you feel like doing. Okay, and then the final instruction is, and this is the hard part too, we have to wait. So ask mom or dad or somebody bigger than you, or if you can set a timer on your own, do that. You need to set a timer for 30 minutes. These have to sit here and raise for 30 minutes before you bake them. So the last time when I made rolls, it took somewhere between 15 to 20 minutes for me to bake them. So that's like another hour, and you don't want to watch a video of me for the next hour. So make your rolls, make your bread, leave it for 30 minutes, and then cook. If you make one big loaf, you might need to cook your loaf a little bit longer. It might take 30 or 45 minutes. Make sure you have an adult help you in and out of the oven. You're going to cook it at 350 degrees, and we would love to hear your comments. We would love to see your finished product. So if mom and dad or big brother, big sister, grandma, grandpa want to take pictures and send them to the library, we would love to see them. Thank you, and we will see you next time on Bookshelf Bites.
It's not a cat. Mandy, your timer went off. I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm going forever. Bye.
Why?
Cut. Thanks for watching.